pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everyone that there's no comma after one nation. It should be one nation under God. There's only 4 commas in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Roll call, council.
Councilmember Halsey.
No.
Councilmember Jones is absent. Councilmember Cave.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson. Here. Councilmember Putnam.
Here.
Councilmember Steiger.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Mayor LaForne.
Okay, any additions to or corrections to the agenda?
I'd like to add ordinance number 15-1857.
It's already there.
It's on there.
It's on the agenda. D.
Okay.
We're just going to modify what we have in the book.
All right.
I'd like to add Don Thompson's letter.
Add that to L. Okay, any other additions to the agenda? Alrighty, first item on the agenda, resolution 2014-129, senior citizen donation.
Good evening. I would like to make a resolution, what's the number, 14-129, to accept a donation of $500 from the South End Coalition. Is there any questions about the donation or any comments about it?
Are there strings attached, or is it just to be used in the...
Just to be used in the senior center.
That's just right.
And I did get an email from Linda Morris, and she was going to make sure that we did get this donation. So she put her name in the hat.
Oh, that was very nice of her.
So, yeah, just so you know.
Move forward.
That Council Simon? Move forward, all right.
Make another girl get out of here.
Next on the agenda, discussion of committee to review marijuana issues.
Yes. Basically, we forwarded the recommendation to the Planning Commission that they form essentially an ad hoc committee, like a citizen advisory committee. We basically called it a marijuana advisory committee. Presented the proposal to the Planning Commission. They liked the idea, and basically we put out a call for volunteers, and Paula and I have agreed to sit down and review the list of volunteers and put the committee together. And then we're still waiting to determine which planning commissioner will chair it. Or if they want to put 2 on it and co-chair it in case they can't be there each meeting we schedule.
Any council discussion?
Okay, one thing we do want is any concerns from the council so that we can start answering questions. This is not just a committee, it's a work group. And so as a work group, they're going to be out trying to answer questions for us. And so that they can put together a consolidated list of information so that the Planning Commission can take that information, do a pro and a con, and make a recommendation to us. We'll have all that same information when it comes to us to decide what we want to do. So any questions beyond what I put in my statement for the record needs to be forwarded to the Planning Commission, and then it will be directed toward that committee so that they can try to get answers for us.
We have to be careful though, because outside of zoning and location for these retailers, et cetera, are going to be, and kind of beyond the scope of the Planning Commission. When we start making public safety issues, that's under public safety. And the state's going to outline the laws that we have to go by. So.
Yeah, and those while it's an ad hoc committee, it's not, again, it's not the planning commission doing the work. They're gonna, any questions we have, if they need to get information as a committee from somewhere else, then they can go get it, because, again, they're just putting together a list of pros and cons. But there is a lot of zoning involved with this, and that's why we put it there.
One of the things that, and I know we had this conversation prior when you wanted to establish this committee, and I think it's a great idea. I just hope that we're real clear to not create more work for the planning department for Paula, because her plate's already overflowing. I have no issue with questions. You know, she'll direct you to where to find answers to questions. You can ask her questions on where to find things, but I'm hoping that the committee doesn't task her with researching.
That's why we don't call it, it's probably a bad thing to call it a committee. You should call it a work group.
Okay.
It was proposed that these people come ready to do work, to
Okay.
find answers to questions, not expect staff to do it.
She'll be more than happy to direct you in a direction, and I know that she's already done a ton of research that she's willing to turn over to this work group.
Right.
You know, so a lot of things she's already researched and looked at, and she's been working on this issue for months.
And some stuff we still will need some staff advice on stuff, things on how the building code's gonna be enforced, and things like that. Like I said, I already got some preliminary answers from the fire department. It sounds like the state fire marshal has reviewed a lot of the types of businesses that are out there and thinks that the fire code is sufficient to allow these businesses without any major modifications. It doesn't mean we can't look at some safety issues and address that ourselves to address our concerns. But as far as, you know, how the state fire marshal is supposed to put a letter out to let us know that it looks like it's everything that they've looked at and reviewed falls in compliance with the fire code. And we need some of those same answers from our building officials
Right.
to tell us the same thing, or if there are any concerns based on the types of businesses. We got a PowerPoint from the Clean Air Agency where they got some concerns and questions that they're still trying to get answers for, and we're hoping to be able to do all that. And one of the nice things about putting this committee together is they can bring in expert testimony. So we can bring in the supporters of 502, they can bring in the electric control board people, and they can answer some of these questions to this committee, and then we can get it documented for the record. And every concern we have, there should be vetted. It should be, well, is this a legitimate concern? Does the fire code already address it? The fire code addresses it. This isn't a concern. It's addressed in the fire code, and the fire marshal said it's okay. Building code issues, you know, the electrical inspector, you know, we want to know if a lot of these businesses, because they use halogen lighting, it's going to be a huge draw. Do they have to upgrade the primary service to the building? And if they do, is that going to be addressed? Is it already addressed in the building code and electrical code? If it is, then that's not a concern anymore. It's vetted. And so, because a lot of things are just concerns, and we just need to know if they're legitimate concerns. Is it already being addressed somewhere? And if it is, then it's not a concern. We mark it off the list.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, and I think it's great the way that you've taken this on and willing to help form this group and spearhead this. I just want to be really clear about staff use of time. There's some stuff that she will have to do.
Reduced staff
I
time.
think review staff would be awesome.
I mean, because right now, the planning commission seems to be putting it all on her. And so if we take it away from the planning commission and have a work group that's of eager volunteers that want to go out and get these answers, remember, they're not there to give their opinion.
Right.
We need facts.
Right.
Like
And I appreciate that.
Sorry, Friday, just the facts, man. And we get the facts, then we can make a decision based on facts.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Any other council discussion on the issue? Is it the council, you make the recommendation based on the application the council confirms, or mayor appoints and confirms like we normally do?
No, the planning commission confirms, because it's the planning commission committee. This was just, I think, on the agenda to let you know that we were advertising for help and let you know where we were in the process, if I'm not mistaken.
Other council discussion on the issue? What's council's pleasure?
You're working on.
All right, next item on the agenda, contract for professional legal services.
This is the resolution that we were working on with the governance committee. We met, we developed a timeline for moving forward with the procurement of professional legal services. The RFP was in your packet this week for everybody to review. And we're looking at starting the new contract on July 1st, and it will go for 1 year to January 30th.
June.
Or June 30th. That's a good day. So does anyone have any questions this week?
I do have one comment.
Okay.
Our council member who was concerned about the RFP isn't here again, and I just want to make sure that all the council that are present have read the RFP so that it doesn't come back to the governance committee again. I think Stacy and Amy have done a really good job on this, and we want to move this forward.
Nicely done.
Any other council comments? Yes, question. Is there a reason we're waiting until June 1st? Do we think it's going to take that long to do it? Or, I know we want to get it on the budget cycle, but if we can move it along and get it approved earlier and just say the contract expires June 30th next year.
One of my thoughts on that was, in here I noticed it stated 4 weeks for it to go out, and I'm not sure if it necessarily has to be posted for 4 weeks. That's what we did before, just to kind of test the waters, but I'm wondering if we can narrow that down to even 2 weeks. I mean,
As long as we're not breaking any rules or anything, I think
that'll require.
I think we moved it forward because we had a timeline where we had everything down to the day, but then it came back here to workshop, and so we wanted to make sure that
We didn't want to rush it so fast that we got caught in a situation, so we just, as a committee, decided, say, hey, let's just go with, because we were going to try to do it by May 12th, and then, no, well, now
Well,
we're,
it says May 6th in here, I thought.
I think that's for when we want to be able to bring recommendations to council on who we think we should hire, who the top 3 candidates would be.
Commencing May 6th.
Where do you see me set?
Oh, I thought I read it somewhere.
The old one was May 12th.
I'm gonna look at March has 5 Mondays, so we have to get a
We
week
were looking
for
at
business.
being able to discuss it again at work, for once, get it to the governance committee, so the governance committee and mayor can review all the applications, reduce it down to 3 top candidates, bring it to a council workshop, discuss it, and then if there needed to be any further research or input or information gathered from the candidates, that we would have time to do that without cutting it off. And so we just felt on July 1st, which is, so it's in sync with how we're going to do it, hopefully every year from here on out, where we'll review the contract every year, get a number, and then be able to budget for it the following year. Which I believe the intent.
I'm gonna also reiterate that on the agenda item, the bill introduction page, it is not a fixed price retainer, we're at a fixed price legal representation. The retainer just means you give them a chunk of money, once they go through that, they get more. We're looking at a yearly budgetable amount. So I want to make sure there's no confusion with that.
Introduction,
It's in-
page 2, introduction of the RFP is
On the introductory.
Oh, that's because that's what it was initially, but because we got pushed back, we wanted to allow for enough time. That was the original date, was May 12th.
I think it's whatever we bring forward to final check for consistency to make sure we're advertising for the same date we actually want.
Yeah, this piece of information is the RFP.
We were expecting the RFP to go out.
Yeah, this is
just after our council
this was just a
meeting last
typo.
week, and because we delayed it, that at least put 2 weeks delay in, and then we thought, well, we were worried about, wanting plenty of input from council. What if we put the RFP out, get a bunch of applications, we needed time to be able to review each application as a governance committee and mayor. If any of the 4 council members or mayor had any issues that they wanted addressed in any of the proposals, ask questions, get responses, get back together, and then make a final determination on the 3 top candidates to bring to council. And so we just thought, rather than trying to rush it and get narrow and then not get all the information we need to make a good decision, we thought it would be a good idea to just give us some time to do it. I mean, there's nothing saying we can't offer a contract sooner.
Well,
But-
that's what I was wondering, if you want to change the wording upon confirmation.
Yeah, we just.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure we give,
Well, in the resolution though,
if we don't select current council, which we would expect that current council would give us a proposal, and if for some reason we didn't select them, but we give them notice, even though we're working hourly, we want to give them notice.
We have to give them 30 days notice.
Okay, so we need
It's in the
to,
contract.
doesn't mean we can't have overlapping services, but at the same time, that was another consideration.
so change on the 4th whereas, does that need to be changed?
Well, I think that's true in general, but overall, we want it to be a July 1 to June
Okay.
30 contract. It's just a question of when the very first of those contracts will start, whether it has to start right on, or it starts a bit early.
So we change the RFP then?
Well, in the introduction, I think, I don't know, if we just made it,
Well, maybe under 1, 2, 3, 4, but under the 6th RFP, say the current legal service contract will receive notice upon confirmation of the new provider, instead of having it end June 30th, will receive a 30-day notice.
I would just strike that whereas altogether.
Yeah, we
Why tie ourselves to a resolution where
Yeah, I don't
the
think.
contract says 30 days, we can give it at any point.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can start,
Okay.
whereas, just to simplify.
The last word?
Yeah.
Okay, then, on the RFP.
Or maybe under the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas, where it says, whereas the contract from July 1 to June 30th, however, upon confirmation of new legal service provider shall start, you know, as soon as, how would we word that? So we don't have to wait till July 1, beginning this first year?
I think we may be overthinking the whereases, because they're not binding on anything anyway.
Okay.
Overall, we want to have a contract, and we want it to run a year at a time from July 1 to June 30th.
Right.
The first one may be a little bit longer than that at the beginning, but that's not,
Okay.
I don't think that's essential to.
so, and I think, and you have that in the introduction where it says period commencing May 12, 2014, I think if we just put, you know, upon confirmation, council confirmation or something.
It'll run through
June
June 30th,
30th of 2015.
Oh, that's good.
Do we have any staff input on this?
I have a question I might ask. I noticed you're talking about the budget, and you know the budget's annual, it runs from January through December. Is there any thought to having, even if we hire somebody whenever we do, just have them contract to the end of the year and then start in January every year? It does make it simpler for me, and I think a lot of cities make attorneys do that. So I was just thinking if that was a possibility.
I guess we could do it annually renewable, so we don't, maybe we want to have a big deal right before the holiday break.
Well-
Can we just make it renewable annually?
You can renegotiate at any point.
Yeah, so I'm thinking just do the first time, and let's say that you find somebody in April or May, and you just do a contract to the end of the year. As far as for me, before the holidays, I've worked with attorneys before, and they're very flexible to do that. But I think since we do all our budgeting before, between October and December, this would be out of the picture, so we'd have to be guessing in the future. And
Yeah,
it's not a huge problem, but it would make it simplified if we could just do it matching our budget.
Are we set a timeline for negotiating the next year's contract, that it would be in time for the budget call?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So from December 31st, or January 1st
January
to
1st through
December.
December 31st,
So
right?
you could just say with annual review prior to September 31st every year. or what accepted certificate fees or whatever works for you.
Yeah, December 30th will be fine.
Because we could have, you still up to the end of the year, and if for some reason
That'll give you
negotiations
time to
break
put an
down,
RFP out.
we get 30 days and we can.
That's why we did June, 30th, as the cutoff date.
Our
so that-
budget is the end of the year.
so.
Okay.
Did you get all that?
Well, would we want the first contract then to go to, instead of stopping at June 30th, 2015, go through June 30th, so we're not going at the end of this year, go till December 31st, 2015?
So an 18-month term for the first, either 6-month term for the first one or an 18-month term.
Yeah, seems like we should.
Either way will work for us.
I would be in favor of the 18-month
Yes.
one, you know, to be on board.
I like the idea of continuity of legal services.
Well, and you can always, as long as you have it out, if you're not happy with them, you give 30 days notice and you're done.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to tie yourself to the 18 months, but
Right.
you're probably going to get,
But the proposal we get needs to be for
yeah, 18. I think you're going to get more people, if it looks like a long-term contract, you're going to get more people to do proposals.
We have the 30 days.
That's the only thing about that problem I have with trying to come up with a date that says a period commencing upon approval is, how do they determine what the price is gonna be? So if we give them a set date that they start, then they know to put in a dollar figure that's gonna be commensurate with the time that they're gonna be serving them.
On the other hand, if the initial term is 18 months or 1 or 2 weeks difference in the smaller five-year contract.
If they give us the monthly price, it doesn't matter when they start, then we multiply it by 12 for the annual price.
That's true. Okay.
Now, did you do that?
Actually, in the contract period, we don't have a 30-day notice.
I don't know if that would be in the RFP, as long as the contract
It
doesn't.
would be in the.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So then this one contract period is changed to whatever the initial 12-month contract is, changed up to whatever,
Right.
18 months.
And it's 18 months.
Any further council discussion on this one? Council pleasure?